Good morning, peoples. Today we're going to be having a look at these fancy fostex T50RPs. As you can see, they've got custom paintwork, dual entry, balanced conversion, a few mods inside, nice matching emerald green cable. And we're going to take a look and see what goes into making something like this. So obviously, first of all, we need to dismantle them. That's pretty straightforward. Then give everything a good old sand. We're using 800 grit sandpaper here, and that just puts little scratches in the surface to give the paint something to kind of key into and stick on there, because we want the surface to last for years. Then we're taking the smaller parts and gluing them to some coffee stirrers to stop them from blowing away, and giving everything a good old coat of adhesion promoter, which is a bit like a glue, which will help the next few layers of paint stick to the plastic, like nylon and things. It's very difficult to get paint to stick to. Here I'm giving it a coat of grey sealer, which is a bit like a primer for plastics. Just give everything a good old spray. This is by Autoborn. It's an automotive paint. Then give that a bit of a sand just to take off any nibs that have gone on during the sanding. That will give a nice smooth finish, hopefully, on the subsequent layers. Next, I'm mixing up a base coat, which is like a minty green. With our paint, it's a translucent. They're mostly translucent colours, and we build them up in lots of layers to give a real deep colour. So you need kind of a nice even base initially, which is quite matte, and then we're going which is quite opaque, and then we're going in with the translucent greens. So I've already given it one coat of emerald here. Just going to hit it up with a second coat, which will really give it a nice depth of colour. And then obviously after that's done, in between every layer they're going into a dryer, which is temperature and humidity controlled. Next I'm mixing up some Lecturer Megalac clear coat. It's a 2-part clear coat, and I'm using thinners just to get it to the consistency I want to get a nice smooth finish. Giving everything a good old spray there. As you can see, I'm wearing an air-fed mask because this is pretty nasty stuff. And you've got a proper spray booth there and everything, which sucks out the overspray. Here they are coming out of the dryer after they've been in there for sort of 8 to 10 hours. Now I've got to drill some holes. So we're using a 10mm burr tool to create some holes to put the sockets in, and then using a tap and die set to tap the right kind of thread. That'll mean that we can screw in the sockets, and they'll be in there nice and firmly rather than just kind of drilling a hole and poking it through and gluing it. So having a proper thread tapped in there, again, just makes it last a bit longer. I'm using a scalpel just to remove any burr from that to give a nice edge. And then I'm going to test fit the sockets, because you don't want to solder on all the wires and then realise that the sockets don't fit in there properly. So it's always worth doing that. That'll also clean out the threads that are in there after you've cut them with the tool. Next, as you can see, I'm making the little wires which are going to link the sockets to the drivers. We're using some of our lits, and I've created a twisted pair. Probably doesn't make a lot of difference over such a short length, but you know, might as well do a good job while you're in there. And then on with a bit of flux and solder the wires on, bridging 2 sets of 2 pins. So it's set up like an Odyssey cable where you've got 2 pins for ground, 2 pins for positive, and that just gives it a little bit of redundancy. We do the same on the cable, and then if you break a pin or something like that, it's still going to work. You've got 50% redundancy in there. Next, as you can see, I've got the microfiber cloth out because the paint's probably still a little bit soft and I don't want to scratch it up. Just putting in the sockets, and then we're going to add a bit of damping material to the inside of the ear cup. This isn't necessarily something you need to do, but it helps absorb some of the sound bouncing around inside the ear cup. Stops as many reflections coming back through the driver, and makes them sound a little bit more open maybe. Here we go. So the drivers are going on. Being very careful not to overheat them, as it's on a plastic substrate. You don't want to melt the membrane that's in there. And then I'm covering up the original wires in a matching green paracord. I could snip them off, but then it's going to leave. There's always going to be a little bit left over where you've cut it. So I just thought I'd cover it up for the neatest kind of look. But yeah, it's a judgment call. While we're in there, going to add a little bit of mass to the back of the driver, which helps give it something to push against, which should help with just kind of tidying up the very low frequencies, giving a bit more detail down low. Again, all these things very subtle, but it certainly can't hurt and will give a slight improvement. Then I'm damping the actual baffle that sits in, which stops various resonances, and again it's going to absorb a little bit of that sound bouncing around inside the ear cup. Next, got to reassemble them, being careful with the paintwork, and obviously the hinges are a little bit fiddly, but it's not too bad. Just get everything screwed in. It's normally at this point you start to like, yes, it's the end, it's nearly over, because obviously this is like a couple of days work. But it starts to feel good when it starts coming together. So we're putting in a little bit of foam, putting the pads on, and now it's time to get going on the cable. We're using 2 mini XLRs, mini 4 pins, like an Odyssey cable. It's quite nice. We're at the stage now where we're getting through enough connectors that we can actually get them made to our own spec. So those are some ones with a custom matte finish rather than shiny that we had made up. Just again soldering those in so that we've got 2 sets of 2 pins bridged to give redundancy, and checking everything over. Oh man, it's only when you watch it back at like 10 times speed like this that you realise that there's just a lot of work going in. I often wonder why I only get 2 or 3 jobs finished in a day, and this is why. It just takes a very long time to get everything kind of right, especially with the wire that we use. It's a real bugger to solder. So as you can see, I don't know if you spotted there, I'm just using a little bit of hot glue to hold the 2 strands of paracord together, so that if one's firmly in there, it means it'll hold the other one in. Again, just gives it a little bit more robustness. Now we've got a twist and braid, so we're doing a twist at the top, and then that goes into a braid, and it's all hand braided, as you can see, so we don't put too much strain on the cable. Next, going to actually fit the XLR, so using some PTFE tape to get the grommet on, then tinning everything. But these are beautiful to solder. Oh, like a lot of the connectors we use are tiny little things, and it's just such a ball ache. But these nice big bits for you to put the wires in, get some nice solder in there. So just using a multimeter as I go along, just to test which wire's connected to where. And then reassembling the connector. And then the best bit of all, we get to plug in. And there we go. It's a beautiful thing. Makes it all worthwhile. So anyway, that's how we did it. I hope it was vaguely interesting just watching something like that getting made. And if you've got any questions or comments, stick them in the thing. Really nice if you could like and subscribe, because it all helps with the algorithm and stuff. You know, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, I'm sure if you like and subscribe, something similar might pop up, even if it's not us. You never know. Anyway, it's been super fun hanging out, and I'll see you again. All right, bye.